I think they're ready. So, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for your patience as we have had a delay in our start this morning. We will continue to work on that. We know we had a change of location due to early voting beginning today at the Howard School building. So, that's also just a reminder to those of you who participate in voting that early voting has started. And we encourage you to consider um, being able to participate. And so, with that being said, we want to call the February Homelessness Planning Council meeting to order. And I want to begin by taking my time just to really thank all of the board members who were able to attend the retreat on Friday. I feel like we had a really good time. It was informative. The feedback has been really well. And so I know that many of you are working, you have other family obligations. So to take a day out so that we could really begin to strategize and do major work is appreciated because oftentimes what we know is we get the feedback of what are we doing, and I think that was able to be answered. And so again, just thank you all so much for your participation. And again, if you'd like to provide feedback, then please email that to Raquel so that she can put that in addition to the other feedback that we already have. And so we know that people were equipped with information. And if you were not there and would like a folder or either the PowerPoint, which really was still emailed to everyone prior to the board retreat, so that you should have that within your personal emails. But if you do not, let us know and we'll be happy to get that to you. So that was the one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing was, since the last time we've gathered and we talked, remember we were actually preparing for cold weather, and I don't think we were prepared for what we actually did. At least let me say I wasn't. And so we had what many call the winter apocalypse, is what I think people have decided to term it. But I want to take this moment of privilege just to really, really take the opportunity. We know, again, all of the things that there were some things that we know can be worked on to improve the shelter process. But I do want to take time to really just offer up my thanks to the Nashville Rescue Mission, to Room in the Inn, and also to the Metro Social Services for manning the cold weather overflow shelter. And I think oftentimes in our community, we do just to, as a reminder, it is the overflow shelter and not the primary shelter. So with that being said, I want to give some highlights about the work that particularly that particular shelter did during that time. My understanding is so far there have been 32 nights in cold weather. And during the time of January 12th through the 22nd, there were consecutive days, and that meant from staff were there sometimes from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and that there were times that there were 24 hours of operation within that shelter. So we had about 30, they had 33 staff working the shelter, many who actually had to sleep at the shelter or in nearby motels, meaning taking time away from their own families and responsibilities in order to do this. And we know that that was around 240 hours of staff time. There were staff that were also trained bilingual, so there were the ability to do that, and then also some CNAs as well. And my understanding is that they served more than 10,000 meals. That included breakfast, lunch, dinner, and overnight. And we know that with those sheltering services comes case management, housing support, substance abuse support, domestic violence relief assistance, mental health support, as well as, again, the meals that were prepared. And so throughout the time, we know at some nights there were over 350 individuals at the overflow shelter. And that was about on average, there was not a time, it seems like, that there was less than the looks like from the numbers I received that the slowest night was 233 individuals. And so remember, that is the overflow shelter should not be the first shelter that many people are seeking. But we did just want to highlight that. And so we know that staff was responsible for conducting cold patrols, also being outside in the cold at the WeGo bus stations to help make sure people were getting where they needed to go. And then also just whatever assistance was needed on site, knowing that that takes major cleaning efforts and other things. So just to let people know, that was the kind of work that went on while many of us were snuggled up in our warm homes. And I do know many of you also were doing the work and out. So just wanted to express appreciation and thanks to each of you. We do know that there are things, again, that can be improved, excuse me, but I wanted to take the time to also just highlight what some of the accomplishments were related to the cold weather shelter, because I know when we think back a couple of years ago within this committee, the shelter was one of the hot topics that we were concerned about when the shelter would open, the length of the shelter, who would staff the shelter. And also remember that there was an RFP out. So I always encourage, particularly the nonprofit agencies that are here, if you aren't pleased with the way that the overflow shelter works, then I would recommend you getting with your executive directors and board of directors. And when that RFP drops, put in for it, and then you're able to implement some of the concerns and work on some of the changes that I have heard be expressed. And so we welcome that and would love for other agencies to consider that when it does drop. So again, my sincere thanks to Renee Pratt, the Director of Metro Social Services, and her team, Giovanni Aco, who is the liaison to the Office of Homeless Services, and to all of you for continuing for us to make sure that the most important thing is that we are hopefully preventing people from dying in inclement weather and elements. And so we continue to move forward and continue. Winter is not over, so we will continue to operate and move forward. The other thing I did want to address is that I know you all know I'm very transparent, open, upfront. Many of you have been in receipt of an email that came out saying that there was gatekeeping going on related to a letter that was shared with executive committee from the shelter committee. And I do just want to remind people, I think that I have previously before, is that we are, and at the board retreat talked about, we do things in decency and order. And so the process that has been extended to each committee chairman is that if you have an agenda item that you would like to go before the Homelessness Planning Council, is that you present to the executive committee. And it isn't so that we won't ever share it, because there has not been one committee chairman that has shown up at executive committee meeting that we have not carried forth the work. It is simply for us to be able to ask questions and to help, if needed, to support whatever the endeavor is, and to hopefully have it to where when you come before this particular body is that it is well thought out and that people are ready to go and that we are prepared to help answer those questions. So I think most committee chairmen have shown up. There hasn't been a problem. I think I gave the example of Ms. Patterson showed up at executive committee meeting after having some personal issues even the day before. She came, we were able to hear her, and when she wasn't able to be executive committee meeting, we were able to carry forth the business. And so it did not halt her committee in any work that was done. But had she not shown up to executive committee meeting, we would not have been able to carry forth the business. I recognize that most of us, well, all of us are volunteering for this position. And so the way I'm a servant leader, so I lead the way I want to be led. And I'm not a person who wants to waste anyone's time. So for me, we don't have committee meetings within this meeting. We don't have people just up talking randomly, because people's time is important. So the same respect that we give anyone else is the same respect that I just ask of committee members. And so again, there's nothing trying to be, I'm not hiding anything. I don't care to hide anything. Every meeting that we have is open, public notice is provided. People are welcome to attend. And so, as you all know, we can't even have private meetings and private correspondence. So I do want to make sure that we understand the stance that as chair, I have the right to set those agendas, and that is my role, to keep us moving in a business-like manner. And I know that for some, that could be a difficult stance to take. And also, I go by Robert's Rules of Order. So that is the advice that I have been given also by Metro Legal and other organizations, and that is how we also encourage committee members to operate. So I did want to put that out there. Committee meetings are not recorded. And the reason being, it takes a massive effort to get these recordings done. I'm sure that you all see when we are particularly, it's not as much here because this meeting is always recorded. And that particular, the media staff is located in the building. But when we are at the Howard School building, if you all notice the amount of time it takes for the technology team to get the recordings going and to get these out, that's an effort and a cost. And so, and I could be alone in this. I would prefer that Metro's budget not go to recording meetings that may have 2 and 3 people in attendance, and that money still go to direct services for, again, people who are experiencing homelessness and how we can get them off the street in the best way possible and provide services versus spending a lot of money recording meetings where people have an opportunity to attend or review meeting minutes. So, if we are able to do that in the future. But at this time, there is no requirement for those committee meetings to be recorded, and we are recording the Homelessness Planning Council meeting. So, wanted to share that information with everyone. If you do have questions, I am open and will entertain any at this time. But if not, we'll move forward in the agenda. But are there any questions for me? Okay, well, thank you all. We will move forward, and I want to make sure we take attendance. And if you have a conflict of interest when your name is called, if you could just advise me of that at that time, I would most appreciate it. Stephen Handy. Liz Mallard. Deirdre Childress. Alex Smith. And can you all remember to speak into your mics? Jamie Villegas.
No conflict.
Catherine Knowles. Dr. Xadria Inslee.
Present, no conflict.
Deanna Allen Robb. I am present, no conflict. Kanitha Patterson.
Present, no conflict.
India Pungarcher.
Present, no conflict.
Freddie Vakersel. Jordan Hoffman.
No conflict.
Courtney Johnston. John Rutherford.
Here, no conflict.
Ashley Horton. Laura Ferguson Mims. Wendell Seagroves. Rico X.
Present, no conflict.
Adam Hansen.
Present, no conflict.
Tom Turner. I meant to say staff present. I see that April Calvin, Treva Gilligan. Did I miss any other staff? Did I miss anyone? Okay, thank you all for that. At this time, we want to take the opportunity just to remember those who did lose their lives in the month of January that were experiencing homelessness, and then have a moment of silence to honor their lives. Jada Pratt. William Batts Burney III. Steve Daniels. Cynthia Vaughn. Nicholas Hunt. And Timothy Seeds. And I normally don't recognize this, but the majority of these individuals are under the age of 44. So we just want to be mindful and take time to remember those lives, and how can we really make sure and remember the work and center that. So as we take a moment of silence, let's just remember that. Thank you. You have before you, and it's also sent to you via email, the January 2024 Homelessness Planning Council meeting minutes. At this time, we will entertain any edits, corrections, or comments related to the meeting minutes, if you have any. Any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, thank you, OHS staff, for your diligent work in continuing to keep us on track with the meeting minutes. At this time, we'll have the report from the Office of Homeless Services Director, Ms. April Calvin.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's, not with that same energy that I was about to give, but hopefully you guys have something planned for yourself or the people that you love. Want to kind of follow up with what Jaha was discussing as far as cold weather shelter. She covered a lot of it. I do want to highlight that on the maybe about after the 7 consecutive days of cold weather sheltering, all day sheltering, the height of numbers that we saw between the Nashville Rescue Mission, Room in the Inn, Metro Social Services, and we actually opened an overflow to the overflow shelter with the Salvation Army was 1,433 people. 1,433 people just between those 4 locations alone. I know that we've just recently conducted the pit count, so I'm looking to get some numbers to Hannah as it relates to names and our already by name list that we currently have, just so that we can have other measures that we can use to track the data and then also track deduplicated numbers, which is important. Also want to give a highlight to not only to Executive Director Renee Pratt and Metro Social Services, but the Salvation Army for being able to pivot when they started seeing numbers as high as 373 people at the cold weather shelter. With one call of calling Captain Canning, we were able to pivot and 5 consecutive nights, they were able to receive the overflow to the overflow so that it was able to get the Metro Social Service shelter numbers down to reasonable numbers. So that's that. We talked a little bit about the pit count. Susie's not here, and I'm not sure if Treva has anything to share at this time. We are working closely with HUD-TA, regional HUD, and even regional HUD leadership to help with the collaborative applicant move. We received a couple of questions the other day on why haven't we made a grand announcement and why haven't we moved forward with submitting information as the collaborative applicant. At this point in time, MDHA is still the current collaborative applicant. Locally, our community made that decision by voting, but we also have to go through the proper channels of HUD to actually help with getting it officially moved over. So just want to go on record to say that we are working closely with MDHA in this process and really shoulder to shoulder in decisions and messaging and information that go out into the community. But right now, they're still the lead on that until we finalize some of the administrative tasks and duties with HUD-TA or with HUD. So couple of other things. We have some special events coming up, March 7th. You should have received a save the date notice, and here shortly you will receive a link that will help you to register. It is a Housing First conference that we will be putting on here in Nashville. Dr. Sam Simbaris will be there. We have identified 2 other guest speakers. That information will be in the link once it's forwarded out to you all. You all are welcome to attend, and or anyone else that you know and love that is interested in understanding the work that's going on here in Nashville and how we can become more efficient as well. Our planning and research department is working diligently on some COC resiliency classes or courses or conferences, seminars. Not sure what we're going to call it at this point in time. So more information will come out on that as well between April, May, and June. Excited to be able to leverage some of our Metro funds along with partnering with MDHA and the planning grant to help roll out things like this for the community. I think that I've already discussed where OHS, and not just OHS, Nashville is receiving some national recognition We will be presenting in March with the National Alliance to End Homelessness, along with the lovely Kenitha Patterson and Albert Townsend for the Director of Lived Experience. And then we will also present at the Housing First Conference in April on a lot of the changes that have taken place here in Nashville. I have not highlighted this nearly enough, but our HMIS team was offered to co-present with HUD, our HUD technical advisors on some of our data measures. And maybe Hannah will share a little bit more about that when we talk about data. Last couple of things for me. We did a really great work session on the strategic plan during our our board retreat. And our team is working diligently on narrowing down that work and presenting it to executive committee before the end of this month so that we can start moving forward with the community strategic plan and passing that work along to community chair or committee chairs and other committees. Also, we're working on revising the encampment strategy. The shelter committee had some great ideas. We have met a couple of times, I think that maybe once or twice, but we have another meeting scheduled soon. And then we're working with planning on connecting with a permanent supportive housing strategy. CSH is going to offer some technical assistance to help with not only the PSH becoming more efficient as far as the Strobel Center that's coming online, but also that will be some work that we can share across Davidson County as it relates to PSH. Very last thing for me is we are going into budget season for Metro. Have some really great ideas. I mean, it felt like it took us about 6 to 8 months to really get our legs under us as a new department because there was a lot of moving parts when you have to hire your own HR. That's a lot of moving parts. Metro Social Services really helped to prop us up, and then we've been working diligently to get moving on that. So there's some things that we're going to roll out here this spring that was already identified in our budget. We just hadn't really had the time to move forward with it, and then going into budget season this year. So if there are any recommendations or thoughts from the board, I would say email them to Raquel, and look forward to a new season. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Calvin? If not, we'll move forward with the MDHA Collaborative Applicant Report by Treva Gilligan.
Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Well, the good news that I have to share is that the COC awards were announced, and it looks like we got everything that we asked for and a little bit more, which I think Susie kind of thinks that the reason for that is because of increased rents and stuff like that on the permanent housing projects. But we did get 2 new projects, one for permanent supportive housing, urban housing solutions. That was a bonus grant. And another one from the Salvation Army. That was also a domestic violence bonus grant. So those were new. So we received a total of, or will receive a total of $7,832,452. The majority of that will be to sustain the current inventory of public permanent housing for services and individuals. So, which is around $6,872,991, and those projects house 1,247 people each year, 645 households. So the 2 new projects totaling $758,464 will expand housing options and extensive support services for 106 persons. So we're real proud of that. And again, as April stated, we continue to work with Office of Homeless Services and HUD-DA to get the collaborative applicant transfer accomplished. Thank you.
Any questions for Treva? Hearing none, we will move forward to our updates with our HMIS monthly data report by Hannah Cornejo-Nell.
Good morning, everybody. Looking at our monthly report for this month. In January, 3,662 people experienced homelessness in Nashville. They were in 2,937 households, which was 249 families and 2,688 adult-only households. Over the past 12 months, 8,411 unique people have experienced homelessness in Nashville. And if we look at that graph, we can see that January is the month with the most people of the past 12 months. We do always see this number go up during the winter and during cold weather particularly. Additionally, 8% of those people were veterans, 7% were youth aged 18 to 24, and 42% or 1,548 people were experiencing chronic homelessness. 588 people were entered into HMIS in January. 242 of those people were brand new. We had never seen them in the system before. And 346 were returning. Those returners could be from permanent housing or from just an unknown situation. We hadn't seen them for a while. Additionally, in January, 50% of the people experiencing homelessness in Nashville were Black and 40% were white, and 59% of people were men and 40% were women. Moving on to housing, there were 125 people experiencing homelessness who moved into permanent housing in January. We can see on our graph below that we had a 5-month streak of much higher numbers in the past, so January is down from the past several months. There were 62 households, which were 21 families and 41 adult-only households who moved into housing. And over the past 12 months, 1,875 people total have moved into housing from homelessness. 14% of the people who moved into housing were veterans, and 9% were youth aged 18 to 24. 22% were experiencing chronic homelessness. And the average length of time from the time they entered HMIS, so when we identified them in the system, essentially, and when they moved into permanent housing was 203 days. The ways people were getting into permanent housing, most commonly, the first was 16 households, moved into housing with no subsidy, so a regular apartment. And additionally, 14 households moved in with rapid rehousing, and another 14 moved in permanently with friends and family. Finally, 46% of the people who moved into permanent housing were Black and 38% were white. 49% of the people who were housed were men and 50% were women. And our highlight for the agencies who housed the most people, the Salvation Army housed 16 households, Operation Stand Down housed 10 households, and Oasis Center housed 8. So thank you to them.
Any questions for Hannah? Yes.
Almost out of habit, I called you vice mayor. You're sitting in that chair. Just a quick question in regards to the total number in January. Is the point in time count incorporated into this, or we expect that next month?
That's the next item on the agenda, so I can just do it. But it is not included in this, although, people who are counted on the point in time count are also counted here, but they're separate data sources, essentially. And yeah. Should I just go into the point in time count thing, or does anyone else have a question?
Hold on, go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Rico.
Yeah, I had a question about the dip between, I guess, December and January of those that were housed. Is there any additional context that explains that, or I'm just kind of curious?
So one thing I know is that the 100-day family challenge was going on during the fall and through December. And so we were housing a lot of families during that, more families than normal. So January, we saw a more regular average number of families who were housed after the family challenge. So that's part of it. I think also January tends to be a lower month for housing year after year, though I'm not totally sure on why that is.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Of a question, it appears that in Middle Tennessee, maybe Davidson County, that African Americans are about 25, 26% of the population, but yet these numbers of Black people who are homeless is almost double that. Is there any understanding of why that number continues to be disproportionate?
I think we could go read a lot of books about this. I mean, structural racism has, entrenched poverty for Black people in Nashville. So I think that just continues to be the case. And Black people still have to experience that today in order to find housing. So I think structurally we know that from that. But in our specific community, it is something that the Data and HMIS Oversight Committee are looking into in the reports to figure out if we can find more specific information that can help us see what we can do about it.
Any other questions for Hannah? Okay, thank you, Hannah and team. Did you have more to say about the point in time count?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
The point in time count was on January 25th. I know some people here were volunteers, so thank you for going out in the middle of the night. I didn't have to go out. I was just awake at my house. We had a bunch of teams go out and collect unsheltered data with the MyCap app from Vanderbilt. And at the same time, we've been collecting data from all the emergency shelters, transitional housing programs, and safe haven programs in the city. So we have all of that for one night. Right now, we're cleaning and putting all the data together. We will not be releasing the numbers for a while. They're not due to HUD. HUD actually hasn't said when they're due yet, but usually they're due at the end of April. So when they're official with HUD is normally when we release them to the community. So we will have to wait a little bit on that. And that's all on the pit.
Any questions about the point in time count? And typically, just to let you all know, when those numbers are ready, MDHA will do an official press release, and they will have a diagram with all of that information, and that will also be sent to you all as soon as it's hot off the press. So yes, I want to echo her sentiments and thank each of you who did go out and participate in the count. It's always a good experience. So if you have not done so, we look forward to you participating next year. You have a comment?
Just a comment. I wanted to commend the outreach workers of the Office of Homeless Services. I participated in the count for the first time, and it was a very eye-opening experience. Particularly in my own community. And I think what was extremely helpful in terms of the people that we were talking to and doing this survey was having a staff person on site. And so I think it's one thing to, issue a survey and get people to answer the questions, but it was another thing for us to have that outreach staff. In my case, it was Mr. James Clay. And for him to be so knowledgeable about who was already out there and the new people that he encountered, it was extremely powerful for him to offer support in real time and say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you. Here's some additional information. And I think that made a huge difference that night. So just huge kudos to those staff that are on the streets day in and day out.
Thank you for that. So again, I know I've participated for the past, 12, 13 years. May go into retirement next year, we'll see. But I do think it's a really good opportunity. So again, if you haven't, definitely. And also, always kudos to those who are out every day doing this work, making sure to try to connect with those who are experiencing homelessness. And we know that that's a process. And sometimes that connection and engagement is what that process may look like, as we saw at the retreat. So yes, thank you so much. And thank you to each of you that did participate. We will now move forward with the HUD TA Cloud Burst engagement and updates by Allison Cantway.
Okay, great. So I know several of you were at the retreat and heard a lot of this, but we are working with many forms of TA. And so just so everyone is aware, we're working with Cloudburst on our COC structure and planning. For family and veterans work, we are currently working with Built for Zero. For our CAB, we are collaborating with NAEH, the National Alliance to End Homelessness. And then for permanent supportive housing, project management, we're working with the Corporation for Supportive Housing, also known as CSH. So we're engaging with these folks a lot. The areas that we have engaged Cloudburst on are updating our VI SPDAT and our kind of CE process. We're working with them on making sure that we're in data compliance with HMIS versus, HIPAA, because those are two different systems. And then making sure that there's a seamless process for the transition of the collaborative applicant. We have also put in additional requests for support around domestic violence centered service delivery and making sure that we're in compliance with VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act. And then working with them on permanent supportive housing cost analysis and best practices. So since the last meeting, we've been working really closely with them. We have applied for a HUD community workshop to be a part of their conversations around CE and, how to update the CE process, other options around assessment and the VI SPDAT. So we are currently hoping to hear that we have been accepted for that, because I think that's a 4-week process. It's several different workshops. We met with HUD representatives twice last week, both on Thursday, to talk about the collaborative applicant transition. And we're also working very closely with MDHA. And as April said, the collaborative applicant transition, there's no single lever to pull. It's a process, and it has to be approved by multiple layers and levels, offices within HUD, because it is the federal government. But we have made really good progress. We met with the local field office last week, and they're aware of the transition. They're beginning the processing of the paperwork. So we're really hopeful that will continue to move forward. But we're very grateful to MDHA, who's worked really closely with us throughout all of this. And then so the Continuum of Care Award. So I believe all of you in your packets should have this handout with the breakdown. But it was excellent news that we got from HUD. So they have funded us almost $9.7 million. And as you can see at the very bottom of the sheet, it has the amounts from the last 2 years. And you can see there was quite an increase this year of $1.86 million, which is very exciting. I mean, clearly HUD believes in the work that we're doing, feels that our community is doing really well. We're really data-based and using best practices and proven methods. And so this is really exciting. And as you can see here, there were 3 new programs that applied that were approved. So one of them is permanent supportive housing through the contributor. And then 2 were through the Salvation Army, one of which is centered around domestic violence and the DV bonus money that was available. And as Treva said, we actually did get more money than we even requested, which is fantastic. So we are very happy about this. The PEC worked really hard on evaluating these projects. And evidently HUD agrees with the evaluation, because they have all been funded. So this is very good news. We'll have, as more information comes out, we will share it, and we're already gearing up for this year's competition, and hopefully we'll get even more money. That's all I got.
Any questions for Allison? Yes, Councilman.
Good morning. Thank you for the detail there. Just a quick clarification regarding the regional items that are associated with the Salvation Army. So it's listed, the Salvation Army of Georgia Corporation, which is a region of the Salvation Army, right? As far as their operations goes. The dollars that are listed here, all of those are specifically for Metro, just to confirm.
All of these dollars are specifically for housing projects to take place here in Nashville. Not going to Metro government, but going to all these different agencies in Metro, yes. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you. Just want to make sure because I know sometimes we go really fast. She did a great job in sharing what those acronyms were, but I know there was a mention of a VI-SPDAT, which is the Vulnerability Index that was often used, and at this point we do use when we go out and meet with individuals to help with our coordinated entry efforts. One of the things, as you looked at when Pastor Handy brought up about the disproportionate amount of African Americans experiencing homelessness, one of the things that is also known about that tool is that it is not as equitable. And so that is one of the reasons the people who even invented it are recommending not to use it. So when they talk about the importance of us as a community looking at developing a different tool, that could be a way that does help, because as we know, that's one of the ways we do look at chronicity and vulnerability. And that is how sometimes people are, or that is one of the contributors to how people are placed on the by name list. And so if we know that this is a non-equitable tool, then most likely sometimes people who look like me don't necessarily get the same advantages of people who don't look like me. So we want to always be mindful of that, and also how are we centering our approaches with folks. So when we think about and look at what the total picture is, just know that there are efforts being conducted to look at that again in additional trainings as well. And then I know she mentioned the Built for Zero and talked about with the Veterans and Families Group, which is an organization that does help communities reach functional zero, which that may at some point be part 2 of the board retreat to whoever comes in this seat after me. So I will leave that as a suggested note. But I don't really have much else for myself about the board retreat reflection, but I did, if anyone here wants to share anything related to the board, we can do that at this time. If anyone has any comments. If not, we can move forward. Okay, I'm gonna come to Treva after Councilman in the back.
I just wanted to say that I was very grateful for the opportunity, and I think that being new to this effort in particular, it was very useful. I learned a great deal during that effort, and I just want to commend everyone who was behind putting it together, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
I want to apologize. The numbers that I gave from Susie's report that she emailed me or texted me via this morning were from last year. The numbers that she just presented were accurate. I didn't have time to really look at them or go over them, and Susie's in North Carolina dealing with her mother who's having some health issues. So I just want to apologize. It wasn't intentional.
Understandable. Hey, we are all in this human condition, and until something happens otherwise, we will all continue. That's why the team works. So totally understandable. Any other reflections related to the retreat? Kanitha?
I wanted to say, I kind of echo the councilman's sentiments about the retreat. I really felt like it looked forward, and especially the strategy activity. I expressed that then, how much that was very interactive, and just something that we need to be doing the work together that way often. That way, I feel like a lot of the suggestions that are needed naturally flow out just by engaging with humans, like we just said. So I was very hopeful with the retreat and the activities we have coming up and the presentations that we have the opportunity to do. And I just feel like it's an open road to building better in our city. So thank you for the retreat.
So I just want to echo that too. I mean, it was an amazing day of learning for me, being new to the council and being able to connect with multiple people in this room and be able to really look forward and think outside of the box. I really enjoyed the exercise and then being able to connect and see how everybody thought. But I think that was a really beneficial exercise. And then one thing, just as a reminder, that I discussed at the retreat, the Lowe's grant is open until Monday. And in the email that Raquel sent out, there is a link to sign up for the nomination form. And Raquel, thank you very much for sending that out. And if you guys have any questions at all, I'll hang around after the meeting a little bit. I know, Jamie, we had talked last week, about doing some submissions, and I'm glad to help anybody out or answer questions. But just the work that we're doing here is very important, and there are other opportunities in the community for businesses to get involved. So just really thankful to be a part of this, and really enjoyed the retreat, and thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Grateful for the planning. I know my Saturdays are sacred, and I didn't want to feel as if I was giving my Saturday away, and I didn't feel that way. So 3 things that kind of sprung up for me is this idea of embodiment, that I think we created a space for embodiment. How do we live into this reality? The other one was equitable. There were enough diverse voices in the room, and I think there was a sense of empowerment. Because I'm a preacher, I have to do things in 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, the 3s that Pastor Handy just shared, but also I think our community leadership, you all's leadership, the department's leadership, and Mayor Freddie O'Connell coming out. I think that he was juggling his schedule because First Lady Jill Biden was coming to town, and so he had to adjust his schedule, but he would not have missed that meeting. So was happy and pleased to have him there, and I think that he was able to really share sentiments of sitting in your seat at one point in time, leading in an HMIS committee as a chair at one point in time, and understanding how important this work is. And I forgot the strategic planning committee that he also was a part of, the very first strategic planning committee. So he understands this work and was happy to be there. So it's great to be able to have our community leader braided in the work that we're doing.
Okay. Well, again, thank you to each of you, because I do know it was a good chunk of time. And it just shows for me the investment that people are willing to put forth. And again, as we look forward to how we can improve, but also what are those solutions and what does that look like? So I think we are off to a great start. It has been recorded. It was a community effort. So now when you all hear Jaha did, Jaha said, we are now in agreement that was not the case. So we also have that recording. And I do really seriously want us to continue to move forward so that voices are heard and that we're making sure to empower folks, as it has been said, so that we can continue to do the work even with the distractors. So moving on to our story of progress, we have with us Miss Joy Flores from the Nashville Rescue Mission, and she is going to share with us some of the awesome work that they are doing. And I'm sure you all have seen that beautiful new building that is on Rosa Park. So we just wanted her to have an opportunity to share with us about what is taking place with that. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming and sharing with us today. I will now turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I know some of you have a familiar face. Again, my name is Joy Flores. I'm Vice President of Ministries at the Nashville Rescue Mission. I've been in this role for 7 whole months. I come from you, don't hold it against me, from California. Spent 20 years around LA in urban ministry from the Union Rescue Mission, where I was in a similar role. So I will commend you for your efforts addressing this issue in Nashville. It feels much more manageable than Skid Row in LA County. So I thank you for that. I think there's a lot of hope that we can come together collaboratively and solve this problem. We are thrilled to announce that right after the new year, we opened up our women's campus, a previous building that we had completely tore down. And for 2.5 years, as many of you know, we have had all of our women, children, and families at the men's campus. It's been a party. We are thankful that they are now in their own space. A total of 359 beds is our total capacity for the shelter side. And then we have a women's recovery program. I always promote that. I think recovery is such a need for this demographic, and not just addiction, but life recovery. We have a lot to do to address the traumatic events that come with experiencing homelessness. So come on by for a tour. We'd love to have you, love to show you around. It is very fancy, trauma-informed architecture and things. Aren't necessarily always functional for the folks we serve, but it is very fun. So we're working out the kinks. And like we know in January, we opened up and then the apocalypse of snow happened. So it was a wild month. But I thank you all for your collaboration in helping us move people around the city, getting them into safe shelter. And if you have any questions for me, I'm here for you. And you guys, incredible making up time, I will say. Thank you for being efficient. You're ahead of schedule.
There's probably more of a joke with that than you would have any idea of. What people, I
first
like
time.
to move an agenda. So yes, thank you all. And I know they have numerous volunteer opportunities, or even if you aren't, donation needs. So I'm sure that you can look on the website to see how to get involved. And so we just encourage you to figure out how, again, can we get connected? Because we are community, holistic, and so we are wanting to make sure we're spotlighting agencies so you can figure out how to get you and your networks involved in these efforts. So thank you so much, Ms. Flores. So one quick thing, just to let you all know, on the bottom of your agenda today, you have a couple of opportunities for committee meeting dates. Say that 5 times real fast. And also, we know the next, our March, we have executive committee meeting at the end of this month, and then we'll also have our March Homelessness Planning Council meeting. And I believe is it back here? We'll be back at Sonny West, you all. So we will make sure to get that notice out so that people will remember where we are, because I know that's oftentimes, if you're like me, I can drive on the weekends and then drive to work. So with that being said, I again thank you all for your time. I hope you all have a productive rest of your day. And Jamie, is that your hand? That barely got seen. Go ahead. Now you don't code us up. We trying to get out of here now. Go ahead.
So,
Talk in the mic, please.
just for one other part of other business, I noticed that this month we didn't necessarily kind of go over the $50 million that Metro Council appropriated. I'm looking at the report, and I was wondering if there was a way possible, if we click if we can get, I see that we have entries broken down by camp or housing surge. Is there a way so that we can get a breakdown of the exits by way of the encampments and surges?
Yes. We already have that, and we report it to the shelter committee, so we'll make sure we add it in here as well.
Councilman.
One last question from me. In reference to the permanent supportive housing unit on 2nd Avenue, I believe that to date, there's been one entity respond to that RFP. Do we know much about that entity?
We'll let Ms. Gilligan take that.
Good morning. We, MDHA Executive Director, appointed a review committee to review that proposal that was submitted. The committee did decide that they didn't think that that entity had the capacity to do it. So at this point in time, we're working with the Office of Homeless Services and with MDHA's internal procurement to contact some agencies that we do think have the capacity to do that, to try to figure out a way to sole source the services. So that's in process as we speak.
Thank you. So one of the things we did review at the retreat is that one of the things we have heard in the community, and so we're, Councilman is talking about the 90-unit property that will be coming on board in the spring. We know at our last December meeting, we had, I think, a developer come and talk to us about 100 units coming on board. So that's 190 that we are aware of, and I'm sure more are coming. And so as much as I hear, oh, we need housing, the housing is coming. But again, the gap is who's going to help keep people housed. So if someone comes tomorrow and offers us 5,000 units, what agency is ready to do the work? So with that being the thought, I want to leave that with you all and hope you have a really great, productive day and rest of your week. And I will see you all next month. And happy Love Day. Do something nice for yourself or someone else.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.